All right, guys, you're welcome to the SimplyPips Back to Trading School for the year 2022. Sorry, it's coming a bit late. Last year came a bit earlier. We'll be going through 6 days back to back, except if something happens and we'll have to shift one of the days. And our permit to call it itinerary for the 6 days is as seen on the screen. Today we'll be looking at the nature of risk and a brief on traders' psychology. So it's barely just theoretical. The second, we'll be looking at the fundamental of our strategy development and design. How do you design a strategy? And the strategy we used, for instance, how did we develop it? And why did we choose that strategy? If you don't know the use of a thing, abuse is inevitable. So you get to understand under what circumstances or conditions in the market do our strategy work best, and how do you find those conditions, right? We'll be looking at one of our in-house strategy called the high probability, low risk. We call it HPLR trade, and we'll show also the flow, and we would even give you a trade plan you could use with HPLR and be profitable with. We will give you a sneak peek into our IOF, institutional order flow trade, and the trade plan. We might just look at the daily time frame or perhaps the H4. We'll get there, we'll get to know. We may consider AQZ mechanics, quite a number of videos on that, so we might consider that, but if we wouldn't, we might get in Prof to give us a snippet of how he trades, and then as a bonus for the general class. And I'll be discussing a scalping strategy on day 6 and possibly wrap up this discussion, right? In SimplyPips, we don't boast that we have a holy grail of a strategy. So we have a mantra. We win triumphantly and we lose gallantly. In instances where we take a loss, we take it gallantly like soldiers. And then when we win, we are happy about it. We know we will be triumphant. We might lose a battle, but we know we'll eventually win the war. So let's proceed with our discussion for today. All right, so we'll be looking at the nature of risk. Yes, in the Holy Books, chapter John 12:24, is written in most solemn truth, I tell you that unless the grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains what it was, a single grain. But if it dies, it yields a rich harvest. That is risk for you there. That is risk and the outcome of risk. In his novel, A Tale of Two Cities, set during the French Revolution of the late 18th century, Charles Dickens wrote, "It was the best of times. It was the worst of time." How can it be the best and the worst of times in the same breath? We're talking about risk here, right? If we could sidestep vulnerabilities in life, in general, most of us would likely jump on that opportunity. Taking chances will be less stressful, outcomes will seem guaranteed, and worries will diminish. But such a reality doesn't exist, not in life, nor business. These 3 quotes look bleak. Unfortunately, they adequately describe life and they describe risk. And if you are a trader, you must be somebody accustomed to risk. Let's look at the definition and perhaps a brief synopsis of that word, risk. It is the consequence of uncertainty, right? Risk arises because of uncertainty. You aren't sure what is going to happen. And because you aren't sure, you say it is uncertain. The consequence of uncertainty can be said to be defined as risk. Risk can be emotional, financial, or reputational. And when it comes to trading the charts, specifically Forex, crypto, stocks, commodities, synthetic indices, and the likes, it is all of these three put in one. It affects your emotion, it affects your financial life, and of course, it could put a dent or a feather on your reputation. I know several traders who are depressed, frustrated because of what trading does to their emotion. If you read Trading the Zone and some other materials around risks and psychology, you would find that most profitable traders actually got to a point where they were almost financially bankrupt, if not bankrupt. So it does affect your finance. And when those two happen, it is almost impossible for it not to affect your reputation. Many people don't have good reputation with their family members, friends, and neighbors simply because of risk. And in this case, risk associated with trading. Perhaps they got lucky a few times and felt they've gotten the mojo, and then they decided to take funds from their friends and other well-wishers, and then they lost the money. And you know what money can do to reputation. One consequence of uncertainty is that actual outcomes may vary from what is expected, and as such, risks represent risk itself, right? One of the consequences of uncertainty is that the actual outcome may vary from what is expected. So even though you know that risk is uncertain and certain things could happen, sometimes the actual outcome may vary from what you expected. And so I put in brackets, there is a risk. In risk, about 2 Mondays ago, we all woke up to a massive gap in the market. That gap, by definition, gap means jumping, right? So a gap, even if you had placed your stop loss, you would have lost more than you desired or prepared to lose because of a gap. FTMO even gave a warning in anticipation of the possibility of that gap happening, and it did happen, right? So if it went against you, you could lose more than you initially planned to lose, and that is the risk in taking risk. Generally, risk in this sense cannot be controlled, right? If it can be controlled, then it's no longer a risk. If there's a risk of something happening and then you've been able to control it, then it may no longer be a risk. And the causes of risk vary. It could be human, it could be environmental, it could be economical. You could break it into micro, macro, and the likes. Causes of risks vary, right? But the point of all of this is that it is a consequence of uncertainty. Every day we live with uncertainty. In fact, I can be blunt and tell you that we all here don't know if we're going to be alive the very next minute, right? Leaving your house and going to job for your job, or taking a ride or driving your car is a risk. Somebody might be drunk in the other vehicle, somebody might be distracted, anything can happen. We live every day on uncertainties. And that is what we need to get into our psyche as we begin to look at trading. Let's move on. Now let's look at the characteristics of risks, and we might just spend some time and look at it from the lens of business risk. An important characteristics of business, as in risk, is an important characteristics of business. No business can avoid risks, although the degree of risk may vary and can be reduced, but cannot be eliminated. No business, including trading. I see trading as a business. A business is a venture you go into to make profit, right? And as traders, the essence of all of this, staring at the chart, doing analysis, marking up, taking up the trades, managing them, is so we could win pips. In other words, profit. It is an important characteristic of business. You can't say you are into a business if there is no risk involved. So no business can avoid risk. When I see young traders trying to avoid losing at all costs, I see traders who have not come to accept the fact that this is a risky venture. And if you've been in SimplyPips for a while, you would have heard me say that trading is a difficult way to make easy money. So the guys on social media makes it look like you just come learn how to draw some lines and then you begin to make money. Hell no, it isn't that way. In the process of making money, you may lose money. In fact, if you go to the website of any regulated broker or any site that deals in contract for difference, CFDs, it is mandatory for them to put a risk warning. And part of the things you hear them say is that you stand a chance of losing all of your money. I think I've even seen in one particular website where it stated that you could lose more than you deposited. In other words, you could get to a point where you begin to owe the broker, and it does happen. And like I explained, the gap that happened, some persons might have blown their account and then get to a point where they begin to owe the broker. One other thing they usually would write there is past performance is not a guarantee of future performance, right? No guarantee. When it comes to this industry, there are no guarantees. And I repeat it again, no guarantees. It is a risk. But many people don't like to hear that, especially when it comes to do with money. Yet we accept these risks on a daily basis in our life, right? People go to school. There are no guarantees that when you leave school, you'll find a good job. No guarantees, yet people go to school, right? People get married every day. There are no guarantees that if you get married, your wife or your spouse wouldn't change on you character-wise. There are no guarantees that if you get married, then you have an offspring. No guarantee, right? No guarantee whatsoever. The degree of risk depends upon the nature and size of business, but a good businessman, in this case a trader, should be able to measure the risk and take risks with acceptable ratios. We've been able to establish the fact that you can't avoid risks per se. But if you're in business and you know that you can't make profit without, taking risks, what you need to do is that you must be able to measure your risk. And you have to be able to take risks that fall within acceptable ratios. And I'll give you an example. I don't want to put it in the slide, so I'm going to show you as an Excel sheet, right? So here we have students or participants of our fostering program. It's more or less like a mentorship program where we basically train people on how to trade for prop firms. And I'm going to state this here. if you want to trade on your own money, the fostering program is not for you, right? You could gamble. You could do a lot of things with your money. I do too. For professional organizations, like prop firms in this case, there are certain guidelines, there are certain rules you must follow, and that's what we teach here. But let's leave that and come back here. So this is a back test of somebody who worked on one of our strategy, and he worked on GBP NZD. Just a moment, I have somebody distracting me. Sorry, please. All right, I'm back. Okay, so we have a strategy, and we told participants, go back test this strategy. And what is back test? Go see how this strategy has performed in the past. And this person came up with this result, right? It is either you're hitting TP1, TP2, TP3, TP4, or you're hitting stop loss. And the distance between TP1 and TP2 is exactly the same thing with the distance between TP2 and TP3. So they are practically equidistant. Now, the win rate for this strategy, if you are looking at TP1 alone, is 62.5. You will win 62.5 times if you take this trade 100 times. But if you risk $1, if you risk $10, I beg your pardon, at the end of the period, in this case, 8 trades, your account will only have grown by about $20. But you would have had a win rate of 62.5%. See that? Now, if you allow your trades to get to TP4, you will have a miserly and miserable win rate of 25%. But if you're risking 10% per trade, your account would have grown by 50%. If you step down and said, I'm going to use TP3 alone, you will still have a miserable win rate of 37%, nothing to look up to, not beautiful, not handsome, if we were to use those adjectives. But you would have grown your account by 60%. Right? Now, there are skills to measuring risk. Remember, we said you should be able to measure the risk, and then you decide to take the risks within acceptable ratios. The question is, what are the acceptable ratios? The acceptable ratios are dependent upon the purpose and the environment upon which you are taking the trade. If I'm trading for myself, I can afford to risk 3, 4, 5% per entry. If I'm trading for FTMO, for instance, I can't risk 5% per entry. Why? If I lose 5% in one day, they'll take the account from me. So 5% in an FTMO environment is not an acceptable ratio. For my personal funds, it might be an acceptable ratio. So when you're talking about risks as a business person, if you've not been able to measure that risk, if you've not been able to set a parameter like ratios, we have risk of ruin, we have edge, we have several other things we use to measure that risk. I don't care what strategy you are trading with. You will most likely fail, and fail miserably and woefully at that. I don't care what the strategy is. So even though we're going to teach you guys some strategy here, this lecture today is the most important lecture amongst all. Unfortunately, we don't have all of the time. We practically discuss risk management for months and months in the fostering program. You must know your risk. and you must be able to take them within acceptable ratios. So I won't spend so much time on that. Yeah, we have something else we call a trade plan. So your acceptable ratio, the measure of the risk, the conditions under which the risk must be taken has to be written down. I didn't say memorized. It has to be written down. It has to be put in a place where you can tick them off gradually until eventually you're able to memorize them. And then they become second nature to you. Profit is the reward for bearing risk. Profit is the reward for bearing risk. When people come into trading with their minds fixated only on rewards, they eventually don't go back with any reward. Rather, their equity or account balance become a reward for somebody that is properly prepared to take the risk. If you want to get reward, you must first of all spend your time analyzing risk. Profit is the reward for bearing risk. Profit is not a reward for no risk. Profit is the reward for risk. No risk, no gain. The larger the risk, the more the risk, the more the profit. It is as simple as that in this industry. And I'm not talking about whether you are trading for yourself or somebody's trading for you. It's the same rule everywhere. Right? Recently, I came up on a business opportunity I shared with some of you some time ago. And I shared this Excel sheet. I have met one or two persons who accepted the Excel sheet. And then along the line, they modified it for, of course, various emotional reasons like greed, like so many other things. Part of what kills a trader, right? So there's a company who said that I'm going to trade for you and I'll return certain amounts of money every month or every week, as the case may be. And I put forward 3 models. First model, let's say the company makes $70 for you, which is 7% per week, and then they take 80%, they take 20%, I beg your pardon, and give you 80%. You would have made $56 at the end of the first week. In this model, the red model here, you could decide to be withdrawing your $56 every day. Why? You are not sure if this company will not blow your 1,000 the very next week. You are not sure. They may just blow the 1,000. There are many ways they can blow the 1,000. They could abscond, they could be stopped by government, the EA could misbehave, anything could happen, right? We're talking about risk here. So you could decide to reduce your risk by taking something off the table on a weekly basis. If you do this for 16 weeks, you would have taken out in total $896. If they do 7% per week. Now let's come back to this green part. Notice that this guy, sorry, the red guy, his risk is quote and off quote. In fact, I'm going to ask a question. I want you guys to put it in the chat box. So let's come back here. This is this green guy. This green guy decides that every time I make some profit, I'll add it to my capital. Every weekend, I make some profits, I add it to my capital. At the end of the 4th week, I will withdraw everything I have made as profit. And then I'll be left with just my initial capital. And then I'll repeat this process again for 4 weeks. So this guy is going to wait 4 whole weeks before attempting to make any withdrawal. If I ask you to put in the chat box, R for red and G for green, who is taking more risk among these two guys? The red guy or the green guy? The red guy takes his money out as soon as he gets it, and this guy pushes it back into the system. Who is taking more risk? The red guy or the green guy? The red guy or the green guy? Yes, I've gotten enough answers. The green guy is taking more risks because this guy seems to be taking out his money, faster. This guy is taking more risk because there is something called uncertainty, and he's bare chesting the uncertainty. Well, let's look at a third guy who can dine with lions. This guy decides, I'm not going to take anything out. I keep pushing back all of my profits until the 16th week. Now, at the end of the 16th week, this guy would have had a total profit of 1,687. A total profit, in fact, what am I saying? You would have had, you would have had a total profit of 1,875. 1,875. He took the highest risk. This guy here, the green guy that took the average risk, would have made a total profit of 1,040, lower. And the guy who tried to minimize his risks at all costs would have made will not have made any profit yet, right? Basically, but he would have just been able to go home with $896. Should anything happen at the end of the 16th week, back here, right? So the larger the risk, the more is the profit. And this is not a global rule. You don't just take any risk and say, I will jump off into the lagoon because the higher the risk, the more the profit. No. Right? But we're talking about in trading structured risks. So that guy you see on Instagram posting $10,000 profit, what type of risk did he take? If we go back to the Excel sheet, if the trader blows up the account at the 3rd week, the guy in red, the red guy, would have lost some money, but wouldn't have lost everything. The other two guys will practically lose everything. You must come to accept risks, and you must understand how risks behaves if you want to be a profitable trader. You must understand it. You must come in tune with what risk is, right? We'll discuss more of this as we move on. Taking risk is a habit that needs to be cultivated. It doesn't just happen. You can't base it on luck. Taking risks, especially when it comes to trading, is a habit and it needs to be cultivated. In fact, I think that the proper thing I should have put in here is taking acceptable risk is a habit. Taking acceptable risk is a habit. We take risks every day. Not taking risk is itself a risk, but taking acceptable, profitable risks is a habit that needs to be cultivated. It doesn't just happen. You can't be in risk-taking, right? What you are not in the risk world, in the real world. Let me explain that. You can't be a guru when taking risk. That is in the world of risk-taking, what you are not in the real world. If you are somebody who chickens out of risks in the real world, when you come to trading the charts, you will be the same thing. For those of you in Nigeria, you understand Pidgin English. pot where they leak for house, you carry and go palace, it will still leak, right? You cannot be in the world of risk-taking what you are not in the real world. I have not put this to test, but I have a theory, and I wish there is a way I can put it to test. My theory is this: if you see anybody driving a car worth 10 million naira, and that person doesn't take comprehensive insurance on that vehicle, most likely that person will not be a profitable trader. I read a paper recently, and the paper was talking about insurance habits in my country, Nigeria. And the paper gave some statistics. If you pick 1,000 vehicles in Lagos, the commercial hub of Nigeria, if you pick 1,000 vehicles off the streets, and I'm not talking about commercial vehicles like the Danfo and the likes, let's leave them out, they don't have insurance, you know that already. If you pick out 1,000 vehicles off the street, about 800 we have insurance that is valid. 200 will have insurance that was valid, meaning at one point in time it was valid, it has expired, and they didn't bother to renew it. Out of the 800 that are valid, you would find 700 that has what we call the third-party insurance. And that goes for just like 5,000 naira. Now, it means if anything happens to the car, either an accident, fire, or whatever, nobody pays those guys, right? Nobody. They just simply had a third-party insurance license just to keep the car on the road. Now, the remaining 100 that have comprehensive insurance that usually go for between 7 to 10% of the cost of the vehicle, out of that 100, a whopping 60 of the 100 will have the insurance because it is mandatory for them to have it. Meaning that they are vehicles belonging to blue chip companies, international organizations that statutorily have to insure the vehicle. They have to insure it, right? Or they are vehicles bought via loans from the banks, and it is customary that the bank will insure the vehicle. Now, it means we have only 40 out of 1,000. You could do the math yourself. 40 out of 1,000 that will take funds out of their own pockets and pay for a comprehensive insurance. I feel, even though, like I said, I haven't tested this, that if I can find these 40 persons and we take them through a training on how to trade, they will stand a better chance of becoming profitable traders than the remaining lot. If you buy a car worth 10 million and you are insuring it for 10% per month, the first year you pay 1 million. The second year you pay 1 million. By the fourth year, you would have paid 4 million. If in the middle of the fourth year, something happens to your vehicle, is stolen, gets involved in an accident and is irredeemable, or something happens, the insurance company will pay you 10 million naira. They'll practically buy you a brand new vehicle worth 10 million naira. Notice that for the 4 years you were driving this car, it would have depreciated. And now, on the fourth year, you are getting a brand new car worth 10 million. if you pay 5,000 naira for third-party insurance, at the 4th year, you only have paid 20K. Nobody's going to buy a brand new car for you. If your car catches fire and it burns, so be it. Sorry, go buy a new car worth 10 million if you want. This guy is the smartest guy. Even though it looks like he's been throwing money away, but this guy understands the nature of risk. This guy understands the nature of risk. That's why a bank will never buy a vehicle for you without insuring it comprehensively. In fact, it has to be insured comprehensively before you drive it out of the car lot. Because if you pay your premium for a comprehensive insurance, and as you are driving the car out of the car lot, a truck comes and whips the car around and the car somersaults and is irredeemable, the insurance company must buy you a brand new car, even though you just paid for the insurance 10 minutes ago. That is the nature of risk. But the human mind isn't wired to comprehend risk. I mean, we are not wired to comprehend risk. We are wired to avoid it at all costs. I used to work in the bank for over a decade. And recently, I walked into a branch and I met a superior who was like 6 grades ahead of me. And we got talking, and the person mentioned his monthly salary. When he mentioned his monthly salary, I looked back at myself. I wonder how I did that, looking back at myself. But whatever, I did that. And I noticed that his monthly salary times 4 is what I earn every month trading the charts. But it was a big risk to leave my job. Because growing up, all I heard from my parents and every other person that loves me was go to school, read, get a good grade, get a good job. Get a good job. Getting a job was less risky. Being on your own is more risk. Yet, nobody becomes wealthy holding on to a job. Even inside the job, nobody gets the type of promotion, rapid promotion that is due, you know, a very brilliant person if you don't take risks. So we are naturally configured as humans. We are naturally wired, I bet to say biologically wired, to avoid risks. If you ask me, why do majority of traders lose money? I'll tell you it's not because one person is top hunting them or something, right? If they put the equity of every single one of us in this Zoom session right now, if they put our account equity together, right, it can move the market by 1 pipette. It can move XAUUSD by 1 pipette. So your stop loss isn't really the problem. The problem is that majority of us think exactly the same way, avoiding risk. And these guys, these market makers, these guys already understand the psychology of humans, that we try to avoid risk. So they can easily get us. So guys, again, look at your life as an individual. I'm taking my time here because most people, hey, can we just go to the strategy? We'll get to the strategy later. But look at your life. Look at Write down on a sheet of paper the last 10 life-altering decisions you took. The last 10 life-altering decisions you took. Did you consider the risks appropriately? If you didn't, if you took them emotionally, if you took them haphazardly, if there is no pattern in your thought process on how you arrived at that decision you took in your personal life, if there is no pattern, there will be no pattern in the way you trade, no matter the strategy you learn. Look back at your life. If there is a task you've been telling yourself you want to do, I want to write a blog, I want to have a website, I want to be a singer, and you've been dancing around that thing for 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years, it means you are a professional. You're a professional sluggard. You're a professional procrastinator. I tell you the truth, no matter the strategy you learn, if that strategy depends on discipline for you to make it, you will not make it. Your indiscipline that has affected other areas of your life will affect trading. Trading cannot be mutually exclusive from your life. It is a subset of your life. If you have been a procrastinator, if you have been somebody who is not self-motivated, who cannot sit down alone without influence from others and determine that this is the course of my life, if you can't do that, if you're that kind of person, irrespective of the strategy you learn, you will abandon that strategy once somebody starts shouting TP smash for 3 days. You abandon it and go learn a new thing. You will be a failure in this market. This market is not, it doesn't come easy for those who come prepared, let alone those who stroll into it without any direction. It will mesmerize you and take your money over and over and over again. And no positive talk, no positive confession, no waking up in the morning and looking at the mirror and telling yourself, I am rich, will change that. Positive confession do not negate the place for discipline. You must be willing to accept risk. Last thing I'll say on this slide, look at the last 10 things you bought. The last 10 things you bought with your money. Write them down. Go back into memory lane and remember, did you buy them impulsively, or did you sit down and count the cost before buying them? Did you ask yourself if you really needed it? Was there an opportunity cost? Was there a scale of preference? If there was none, I tell you the truth, you move your stop loss. You will take impulse. You wake up and just like the chart of GJ and take the trade. And if anybody asks you, why do you take GJ? You can't even explain. You can't explain. And once you take it, you find it difficult to close it. Why? Because you believe it can go anywhere. Let me just see. So you cannot seclude your personal life from trading. I haven't seen any profitable, indisciplined person in this industry. There might be, even demand and supply curve have exceptional ones, but personally, I haven't seen any indisciplined, profitable trader, consistently profitable trader, right? So it's tough not, and I might suggest some books for you guys to go read. But again, remember I said, you can't read this, you have to practice it. Risk management, there are many things we can do to risk management or risk. There are many ways we can manage risk. We can avoid it, we can reduce it, we can transfer it, or we can accept it. But the big question is, how can you manage what you don't know? You've got to know the risk. If I'm going to maybe going to the harbor and I'm going to maybe take a ferry or take a boat or take something, what are the risks? The risk is that it could capsize, and if I can't swim, RIP. So what do? I ensure I get a life jacket. What other risk will occur? Well, the engine could stop working while in the middle of nowhere. And again, even with a life jacket, I can't swim that far. So what do I need to do? I've got to get a radio. I've got to know the number to dial. I've got to get fresh water. I've got to get something to eat while I'm lost and alone, right? If you don't know your risk, how can you manage it? Right? And I'll get back to that. Prof did something very interesting. Some 3 years ago, I stumbled into trading volatility index, and I had to stop. Why? I use a standard lot for VIX 75. It gives me something. I use the same lot size for 100. It's looking different. There was no way I could measure my risk. I can't say that I know what my risk was going to be before I took the trade. And there was no point taking that trade. There was no point trading that asset class. There was no point trading it. If you can't know from the very beginning what you could possibly risk, having at the back of your mind that even knowing it doesn't mean it will happen like that, because there could be gaps. Remember I said in bracket, the risk in risk. But at least I should know one. If you can't know one, there's no point taking the risk at all. Right? So Prof did something very good in that. I'll come back to that later. Right, so let's move on. So what do you want to do? Do you want to avoid the risk? You see that little girl there? Let's assume that that doll is risk. You could avoid it by just closing your eyes and assuming that risk does not exist, even though it exists. Or you could run away. Right? Traders who try to avoid risk take either of these two. They run away, or they close their eyes to risks and tell themselves it doesn't exist. And what are the risks in trading? The biggest one is that you lose money. Of course, Mark Douglas used a different terminology. Fears, right? Fear of missing out, fear of leaving money on the table, fear of being wrong, and all of that. But the key one for this presentation, since we don't have all of the time, is the fear of losing money. Right? And traders do this in several ways. And I'll give you an illustration. So look at that. A trader wants to buy. This is an uptrend. The trader has marked the candle of interest, marked the break of structure and everything, drawn the trend lines, right? The trader has drawn all the trend lines, beautiful trend lines, drew them, drew the structure. Everything is looking sweet and fine, right? And then price is returning, and the trader takes a buy. And price goes up a little, and then price drops down. This trader has stop loss fixed somewhere there. And as price approaches the stop loss, the trader decides to behave like this lady, this small girl here, and decides to assume that, no, let me just close my eyes. There's no risk. I'm not, something's going to happen. And then they move the stop loss, and they push the stop loss downwards to this line. And truly price comes, and then price starts pushing back, and the person is happy. Then price trades downwards again. Then tries push upward. The person says, price is coming back, and enters a new buy. Then price comes down. Now you have two positions. Then price pushes up. Then price finally comes down, and this person even moves the stop loss one more time. Say, look, something good is going to happen. Right? These are the type of people that practically go to the phone and practically try to use their hand to move the candlestick upward. Unfortunately, it doesn't respond. This is not Android candlestick, right? Now, this guy is trying to avoid losing at all costs. And they say, if you run away if you don't accept small losses, you accept the father of all losses. If you don't accept small baby losses, you will be forced, not by, let's not say by nature, by every, no, the market is the one, it's not nature. The market will swallow everything you have. You accept the father of all losses, right? I was talking with a friend in US recently. He stumbled into cryptocurrency, and I've been telling him, come, let me teach you a structured way, but nah, the prophet is not known in his own house. So he bought cryptocurrency sometime around last year when price was booming. And sometime around December, January, everybody was shouting Shiba, Shiba, Shiba. I used to know Shiba to be a name of a queen. But now they now put Inu in front of it. It now became a cryptocurrency. Shiba Inu, Shiba Inu, Shiba Inu. Everybody was shouting Shiba Inu. So he bought Shiba. In fact, this thing just reminds me, Bathsheba. He bought Bathsheba. he bought Shiba. And truly, 2 days after I bought it, the thing moved. And my WhatsApp did not rest. It was just showing me progress of how the thing was ticking up. Oh, it was moving. Then he bought some more cryptocurrencies. At the end of the day, he had about $5,000 entry in total value of cryptocurrencies he bought. And at its peak, it was about 7K plus, right? This thing started coming down. I remember the very first day where I made up my mind that, oh, the bull run I thought was going to happen isn't happening. And I woke up that morning, it was a Saturday, something happened in the world. I don't usually care again what happens. Those days I'll go and check whether it is China, whether it is Russia. Well, look, something must happen. Price must not keep going up. Something must happen, whether it's Corona, it's bomb or something, it must happen. So I woke up that morning and my portfolio had dropped by $2,000. I was sitting right beside my wife. I just whipped up my phone and I closed all my positions. I was hodling. These were positions I was hodling. I was hodling. They weren't future trades. Sorry, guys. I closed all my positions out and I was left with just about, let's say $700 in crypto generally. I'm talking about the portfolio I was hodling, and the portfolio was well over $80,000. So when I saw a drop in 2000 and I looked at my chart, and my trade plan had told me that when this happened, guy, you're in a bear season, right? I just closed the trade. Now that was on an 80K account, and I saw 2K, and I took my leave. And I've never since then bought anything for hodling again. Nothing since then. This guy had 7K at his peak, and my WhatsApp did not rest. After a while, I didn't hear from him again. He just went on leave. So when I needed to share an opportunity with him, I called him about 3 weeks ago and I said, hey, guy, what happened? I mean, you just disappeared. What happened? I said, oh, bro, just leave that in. Those crypto guys, they are scammers. They are scammers. What happened? How this scam? What happened? He closed out his put. He kept hoping that it was going to turn back up, and finally he just closed out everything about $400 plus. He closed it out that day, drove out, sold the 400, drove out, went, gathered his friends together, and they spent the 400. Say, look, make I know say I don't spend 400 for my guys. After he just spent it. That day when he spent the 4K, That was when the 400, that was the day that somebody in Ukraine posted that the banks were short, but those who are using crypto were making money. And Bitcoin jumped up by well over 15% that day. And his portfolio might have gone up maybe to 1,005, right? But he closed at 400. Again, why did he pass through all of this? He was trying to avoid the risk. If you ask that guy, do you know that there is risk in crypto? He will tell you yes, but he's behaving like this lady. Even though he will say yes, he's closing his eyes to the risk and assuming that a God fairy will come to him, or perhaps a genie from a lamp will come to him and grant his wishes. There's a difference between knowing that there is risk and accepting that there is risk. The second one is that some people just run away. So they enter a trade here. This is your entry. Your trade plan says you should get out at TP3 here. And TP3 is 150 pips away. Your stop loss is, let's say, 50 pips away. So this guy took this trade. Price went 90 pips. And this guy was happy. Around this time, this person has come to SimplyPips and posted the result. He said, guys, enter this trade. Enter this trade. Price is coming here. Price is coming there, and everybody say, which strategy are you using? The guy refuses to answer. He just say, look, guy, if you don't want to enter, if you don't, and everything. And then price starts coming back down. Price starts coming back down. From 90 pips, this thing is coming. The person will just cut the loss here and take a walk. Say, at all, I'm bad pass. Right? It takes the profit of 5 pips and then takes a walk. It comes back one day later and price is at TP5. TP5. Why? Trying to avoid risk. There's a difference between knowing that you're in a risky venture and accepting it, ladies and gentlemen. There is a big difference between them, right? So for you to be able to deal with this problem of avoiding risk, even though we say that in this business, you must accept it, you've got to know yourself. You've got to know the type of person you are. So I am Prof. Anchor the fostering program, and Prof will say that when he has 3-4 back-to-back losses, he is no longer comfortable. And here I am. I can take 8 back-to-back losses when I'm scalping because it doesn't matter. All the 8 back-to-back losses is just like 1 or 2%. But Prof trades in a different pattern. If he takes 4 back-to-back losses, something is wrong because his strategies usually do not make room for 4 back-to-back losses. Whereas mine can take 15. Right? So once Prof knew that he could not accept 8 back-to-back losses, he had to go look for a strategy that suits his personality. But first of all, he has to know the type of person he is. And then he gave the flip side of the story. He didn't just talk about the losing part. He spoke about the winning parts. He said that when he has, like, say, maybe 4 or 5 back-to-back wins, he's at his weakest emotionally because now he feels like commando. He feels at the same par with Sylvester Stallone and that he can do anything. He feels he's above the market and the market can now move at the snap of his fingers. So he's most vulnerable when he has 4 back-to-back wins. So what did he have to do? He had to create a trade plan to save him from himself. He had to create a trade plan to save him from himself. You've got to know your risk tolerance. You don't have to copy anyone. And you have to be mathematical at doing that. Mathematical at doing that. I don't care the strategy you trade. And I'm going to go back to that Excel sheet right now and show us something there. Right? Remember this Excel sheet? I want you to put in the chat box. Which of these TPs would you rather take? TP1 or TP4? TP1 has a win rate of 62.5%. TP4 has a win rate of 25%. Leave out the percentage profit for now. Let's talk about the win. Oh, okay, sorry. Let me put it this way. Let's leave out the percentage win and look at only the rewards. Only the reward. If you trade it using TP1, if you risk $10, after 8 trades, you'd have made $20. If you take TP4, after 8 trades, you would have made $50. Which of these TPs would you most likely go for? TP4 or TP1? By virtue of what you will gain. Right? Put it in the chat box. Let me be sure that you guys can still hear me. TP, you see, I said TP1 or TP4. Somebody is writing TP3. TP1 or TP4? Which one will you most likely go for? Most people will go for TP4, right? Most people will go for TP4. But by the time you now add the reality to it, that if you want to go for TP4, you will only win 25% of the time. You see that, you know, your eyes begins to see double at that point in time now. So it is not a one-faced coin. If there's anything, there's not like a one-faced coin, right? But it is not, it's not a plane. By the time you see that if you take 100 trades, or if you take 4 trades, you most likely win only one. You will begin to reconsider, should I look at, maybe I should be looking at TP3, or maybe TP2, or maybe something else. Right, you see that? So there is the aspect of knowing yourself that people do not talk about. People only talk about the win rate. You have to be able to look at that. You have to be able to know yourself, know your risk tolerance, and there is a process to doing that. This is not a questionnaire. You just go and tick a questionnaire. If you win 3 times, will you like it? Tick yes or no. Yes. If you win, it's not a questionnaire issue. You need to go through a process where you trade a demo account or a live account, trade it with strict rules and see how you behave. Right? And see how you behave. You need to be able to do that. You must face it. You must face risk. You can't avoid it. Right? Another way you can deal with risk in terms of risk management is that you can reduce risk. Or in other words, you can mitigate it. Right? Again, if you are doing this, you are not running away from it. You are accepting it, and then you are thinking of reducing it. I'll give you guys an example. I have a car, and I'm so fortunate and grateful to God. So far in my life, I think I've driven my personal cars I've had and I've driven, they should be in the last 15 years, should be close to 20. I used to be a car freak, so I just buy them. And I see another one, I like it, I sell this one, and add up and buy another one. So yeah, 20 maybe. All of the cars always have a fire extinguisher. The question is, why am I putting a fire extinguisher in my car? I mean, practically, I don't wake up in the morning expecting the car to be on fire, but I have fire extinguisher in my car. Well, not only fire extinguisher, I have an extra tire, and I'm not praying to have a flat tire, but I put an extra tire there. I've accepted the risk that the car could, burst into flames. I've accepted the risk that I could have a flat tire, and therefore I've prepared for that risk, right? I've also accepted the risk that if there's a flat tire, it might happen at a dangerous spot on the road, and therefore I have a C caution. Right? But if I want to, that's accepting. If I want to reduce the risk, what do I do? To my car, I'll wake up and ensure that every major fluid is okay. And that when I see a risk warning on my dashboard, I take it to the mechanic. How do we relate this to trading? There are times we do what we call BE, we break even. There are times we trail our stop loss. There are times we take partial profits. And to help us do that effectively, there are times we twin trade. And there are many other things you can do to reduce your risk. Right? But each of these things I just mentioned has to be based on data and carried out with routine discipline. It has to be based on data. How do you know that you should break even is the best thing for you? How do you know that trailing your stop loss is the best? How do you know that taking partial will be the best? How do you know it should be twin trade or quadruple trade? How do you arrive at it? Did you just wake up and then take a decision? I was discussing with a friend recently. We've been trying to build something together. And recently it came to me, I was sounding like I wasn't too serious about it. So I asked him a point blank question. I said, hey, mister, do you know how many persons are like you and I locked up in their room all across the world, hoping they would get an holy grail to cripple the market? If it was that easy, it should have been done before we came into the scene. Right? It isn't easy. And the reason is because many people are not disciplined. So it has to be carried out with routine discipline. And it has to be built into what you call a trade plan. I can beat my chest and tell you that if you gather 100 traders, only 5 will have a trade plan. Only 2 will keep to the trade plan. 100 traders, only 5 will have a trade plan. Written down, documented, only 2 will keep to it. The remaining guys are contributors to the national wealth of the disciplined traders. They contribute their accounts, the balance of their accounts, instrumentally into the accounts of the disciplined ones. They are a larger. Right? So how do you determine what to do? Again, I take you back to the Excel. This is somebody's homework. I didn't do anything to it, right? I think there are even 2. This is another one. This person was on GBP Chef, right? So you could decide that, okay, anytime price gets to TP1, it eventually gets to TP2 and 3. TP1 it eventually gets to TP2 and 3. TP1 it eventually gets to TP2 and 3. Okay, since anytime price gets to TP1, it eventually gets to TP2 and 3, at least 3 times out of 4. Why not allow one, divide this trade into 2? Let one go to TP1 and let the second one go to TP3. So I will now have a mixture of 62.5% and 37.5%, and at the same time, $20 and this. You see now, you are now beginning to play with it. And how are you arriving here? You are arriving here based on data. Remember, we are still discussing risk. It's risk we are talking about. The reason why we are doing all of these things is because we know that if we don't come with a plan, the risk will consume us. When you accept that there is a risk, you plan for that risk. You put fire extinguisher in your car. You put a spare tire in your car because you know there is a risk. Right? Because you know there is a risk, you do it. Let's move on so that I won't waste so much time. Another way you can handle risks is that you can transfer the risk. You can transfer the risk. You can insure your business, your car. You can decide to use credit, right? You can decide to use credit. And I learned this recently from a mentor. He lives outside the country, and he said he never uses his debit card. He never uses the debit card. He uses his credit card. And I was hearing for the first time. He said using his credit card, if he inadvertently goes into a wrong website and spends money, the bank pays him back. If it was his debit card, they may pay back, but it may take months to get it. So he uses credit card for everything. And that way, his credit, he also is able to build his credit portfolio. Yeah, thank you, Dapo is confirming it. He's also able to build his credit portfolio. But if you are using your debit card, you will not have what they call credit score, right? Those of you who work in the bank, you know, if you want to borrow money, you must have a credit score, right? They'll check with credit bureau, CSCS, CN, they do a lot of things. Yeah, bank refunds for every wrong spending or reclaim. Yeah, thank you very much. This guy lives in UK and is corroborating what I'm saying, right? You could transfer your risk. You could transfer it. Or let me say, another word for transfer, a synonym for transfer here could be that you could share it. You could share your risk. You could share the risk, right? I'll come back to this later if time permits. Let's move to the next slide. Or you could just simply accept the risk, right? And remember, I said if you accept it, you prepare. Let's watch this guy. I don't need anybody to tell me that this guy, if he doesn't catch this crocodile, he's going to starve. Else, I wonder what took him there. I wonder. But the point is that you have to accept the risk and take it head on. Take that risk head on, head on, head on. But for you to accept, you have to know it. You can't accept something you don't know. You can't accept something you don't understand. You can't know or understand it if you've not measured it, if you don't know its nature. You can't do all of that. You can't trade profitably in a market that without first understanding the risk in that market. And once you've been able to understand it, this guy must have looked at this animal. So, okay, around this time of the day, this animal is usually asleep. If I do this and do that, it wouldn't notice me. And then he went and finally pounced on it, right? Count me out if this is the only way to live. Count me out, right? I'm not going to be part of it. But this guy did it. Right. In conclusion, no risk, no gain. If you are planning to come into this industry looking for a strategy where you will not lose at all, you will lose all. I'll repeat again. If you are coming into this industry looking for a strategy where you will not lose at all, you will lose all. All risks. If you take all risks, you most likely lose all. Right? If you take all the risks you see, just any risk, without assessing it, you most likely lose all. If you take measured risks, you will make some gain. If you take structured risks, you make more gain. And if you take shared risks or leverage risk, you will earn the most gain, right? And I know I didn't talk about shared risks that much. I'll delve into it a little, right? I'm coming to an end. So I'll digress a little and discuss two things before we move on. I mentioned that Prof did something very interesting for us, right? I had it somewhere in my slide. Somehow I think I jumped it. I didn't see it. So I'll just keep it in here. I mentioned I was trading volatility one point in time. But my biggest problem was I didn't know how to calculate the lot size. There was no position size calculator for me on the internet. So there was no way I could measure my risk. And my mentor had told me, if you cannot measure the risk, don't take the risk. If you cannot measure the risk, don't take the risk. So I left it. But Prof has been able to help us measure, find a way of measuring the risks in trading volatility. And believe it or not, I believe that more money can be made from volatility than Forex. That was what I used to think before. But now I discovered that it's not an issue of more money. It's an issue of measured and structured risk. The risk in volatility can be measured and it can be structured. Why? Because certain factors that affect currencies do not affect synthetic indexes, which is what volatility index is, the synthetic index. So for instance, if you are trading GBP USD, there could be interest rate, there could be anything, and price could whipsaw. In volatility index, that doesn't happen, right? It's not subject to news, it's not subject to economic news, whatever news, it is not subject to it, right? It moves, I'm going to say, organically or mechanically, as the case may be. So if you are somebody trading the Forex market, for instance, you know that there are certain periods of the year where the market is choppy. It isn't actually doing anything. And around this time, if you're trading higher time frame strategies, you would lose woefully, right? Why not consider volatility, right? Because it doesn't have so much cumbersomeness. It doesn't have so much choppiness. The reason why Forex is choppy around this time is because of fundamentals, right? Or uncertainties in the fundamentals. And the market is practically waiting to make a decision or to get a direction. Volatility doesn't have that, right? I'm not saying it doesn't consolidate, but it won't consolidate as badly as FX will. And Prof has been able to find a way to do this. So I'll be asking Prof right now, if he's still in the Zoom, he has a class covering this. I will be in that class, ladies and gentlemen. And if you can afford it, I'm encouraging you to be in the class. There are some goodies coming out at the end of it, right? A Telegram group, alerts, signals, and everything coming into it. I left volatility 3 years ago. Prof is bringing me back to it. So I'm entering that class just like you guys as pure novice, and we'll all sit at the feet of Prof to learn. I'm encouraging you. Prof can please drop that post again in the SimplyPips group. And perhaps you joined us, you are not in the SimplyPips. Prof again will drop the link to the SimplyPips Telegram group in that in the chat box. He will drop the link to the Telegram group to the chat box here on Zoom, and then he will drop the details of that volatility class in the Telegram group. He gave a discount for a certain number of days, and after then the price was going to hype up. But I called him over the weekend and I said, look, can we just give the discount generally for everybody, irrespective of the time, except anybody joining after the start date. So you still be having a discount running. If you want to thank me, just put a 555 in the chat box. Thank you very much. But no problem. Let's move on. Right. So as an individual, last year, when I saw the trajectory of some of us in the chat, in the community, I told us clearly, all right, Prof is on the road. He can't talk right now, but somebody should help us. Somebody should help us drop the link to SimplyPips in this Zoom chat room, so that if we have members who are not here, they could join us. Right. So last year I gave you guys, when I saw the way things were going, some people were struggling to hit profitability, and to be profitable in Forex, it's not something you wake up in the morning and say, this week is my week. This week I'm going to make it. This week is not like that. Even if you shout this week, this week, and you're not disciplined when you get to the chart, nothing will happen this week. This week will just move to next week, and you repeat the same process again, right? In the fostering program, we tell you how we introduce you into how you could master your emotions, and then better accept risk, and then now better measure them, analyze them, and then take them to become profitable. To help you guys, I mentioned categorically clear that all my mentors, none of them takes trading as the sole source of income. They all do something in addition to trading. A majority of them, what they do is related to trading in one way or the other, but they do something. And I gave you guys 5 ways. Those 5 ways I mentioned, I ventured into them, and some of them I had ventured into them before telling you guys. But many people did not take it seriously. I'm going to repeat them here again, just so some of you will hear. Not all the 5, but I'll mention some of them. Number 1, we have people like Michael, Steve, you know, and other mentors, right? Adam Koo, they teach, right? And you hear people say, if they are making money, why are they teaching? Well, money is never enough. And they have the right to teach and collect money for their intellectual property. They have the right. If you can learn one thing, you can teach it. You can look at teaching online, right? Like what I'm doing now, like the fostering program. Even though for the fostering program, for some of us, it might not just be about the money. I mean, $200, $250. And here we are trying to give out $10,000 for people to go and trade. I mean, we're practically giving out almost everything we've earned in like 2 years. Right? But yeah, you could earn from teaching. You could form a portfolio, right, out of your trading. So I taught some guys last year how to trade binary options. And I'm very happy that one of them, I think, took out time to even teach his methodology that's centered around dollar cost averaging for trading binary options, I think about 2 weeks ago. And last week, he posted one result where he took about 33 or 34 trades and won majority of them, right? Binary options. You could split your portfolio and you could make money trading binary options. You could make money trading stocks. It doesn't have to be Forex alone, guys. Forex is one of the most difficult things to trade. It's easier to trade stocks like 100 times than it is to trade Forex. You could trade crypto. I took a crypto class last year, right? You could trade crypto. Of course, you could trade FX, right? You could trade any of these things. There are variations. But you must know one thing. No matter what you trade, if you have not imbibed today's lecture, you will fail in all of them. You must be willing to accept loss. You must be willing to measure your risk. And then you must be willing to carry out your trade plan to the letter. Because you develop your trade plan when you are not under pressure. So when you get into the market and you're under pressure, you still have to follow your trade plan, because you know that the trade plan you developed while you are not under pressure can give you money. Guys, find one more and add, right? Crypto is divided into 2. You could even stocks is divided into, you could do futures, you could do outright purchase, which is spot. Same thing with crypto. You could do binary options, right? This is pretty easy for many people. And you could do FX if you want to do. Number 3, I mentioned if you want to do FX, the best way is for you to trade for a prop firm. A prop firm. Don't go trading your own $1,000 alone. You could trade 100,000, you could trade 50,000, you could trade 200,000. That's how you make money. That's how you make money. I also mentioned, so I'll add 3 to 2. I'll add 3 to 2, right? I also mentioned that you could look for a good MLM or affiliate business, right? Look for a good MLM or affiliate business. Sign up. Get a YouTube page. Market it. Get a sales funnel. Push it. Get a blog. Push it. I mentioned this, right? Especially things related around what you are doing, which is trading. Especially things around what you are doing, which is trading. And so last year I told us about then it was Hyperfund. It later became Hyperverse, right? I think about 2 or 3 people followed suit. I put in some money, and so far I've been able to make over 500% of what I put in. Over 500%. And I've already cashed out my initial capital. So I'm practically risk-free. Practically risk-free. Right? Along the line, I told us about IPC. And I remember clearly in that webinar, I mentioned that companies like this have precedents. None of them has lasted 4 years. None of them has lasted 5 years. So if you're coming into this, you must be willing to accept the risk that you could invest today and it disappears tomorrow. However, you could share your risk. That was when I created that Excel sheet. I have some of you coming to me, writing epistles, thanking me that you are now earning $2,000 weekly, $2,500 weekly, $500 weekly. Great. But still follow your trade plan. Follow your trade plan. And ensure that anybody you inform, you tell them clearly, this is risky. You take it or you take a walk. I mean, it's as simple as that. Recently, I stumbled on another company. Is an arbitrage, crypto arbitrage company. Crypto arbitrage company. And they practically do 0.3% every 2 hours or 2 hours, 13 minutes. Right? And after the 2 hours, 30 minutes, your capital and your profit comes back to you. You could roll over or withdraw your money instantly. If I follow this clearly, it means I can get to a point where I'd make 100% in 1 month. But it also means that I could lose all my money in 1 month. So how do I access the risk? What if I put in a little amount and then after 1 month, when I've made maybe 100% of my money, I take out my capital and I'm left with equivalent of my capital, and now allow it to run, and I can decide that every month I'll be taking out 30, 40, 60% of whatever I make and compound the remaining. Risk. Risk. You want to turn 1,000 to 2,000. You've got. There's no other way you can do that. You can't turn 1,000 to 2,000, keeping it in your bank. You can't turn 1,000 to 2,000, saving it in your pocket. You can't. It's impossible. You can't. Guy, if you put 1,000 under your pillow and you wake up and see 2,000, run away. Run away from that house. It's not possible. Right? You've got to take risk, and you have to be able to measure the risks, analyze the risks, and then face it if you want to take it. Right? I mentioned some of those things. Right? I mentioned some companies that have robots that can trade for you. Put a little amount of money there, and then you move on, maybe $100, $200, you move on and do something else. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, you lose. If it works, it gives you something, a stream of income, so that it doesn't distort your trading. It doesn't put you under pressure to want to win and trade every day and win all of your trades every day. Some of you came to me and said you want to leave your job the way I did, and I said, nope, never ever leave your job. If you are not making, if you don't have something sustaining your trading outside of trading, the likelihood that you succeed in trading is slim, or rather you may succeed, but it may take a longer period of time because you'll be under pressure to win every single trade, and that is not feasible. You've got to look for something else. I told you guys to go learn a skill. I mentioned a friend who just 2.5 years ago started writing in Fiverr, and today he earns in excess of 2K every month. Right? 2K every month, for those of you outside Nigeria, might not be anything. 2K every month in Nigeria, that is about 1 million naira. You're a big boy. His previous salary where he was working was a little above 60K. Now he's earning his annual salary in 1 year. Simply writing. I told you guys, go learn one skill. Go learn digital marketing. Go learn content creation. Go learn something. This trading is a difficult way to make easy money. It's a difficult way. It's a difficult way. I'm repeating it 3 times. If you don't have something that will sustain you, I'm not one of those mentors that will come tell you it's an easy way. Don't worry, join my class. Once you join my class, by next month, you buy Ferrari. I don't drive one. I don't drive one. Right? You must have something you do that is sustaining you. But that you'll be profitable in this market, yes, you can be profitable. Even with the things we're going to teach within these 6 days, yes, you can be profitable. Especially if you decide to go for a prop firm. So guys, you have to find a way. Find one way. Don't just sit down. Go learn how to do, what is it, digital, what do they call those guys that do flyers? Ty, what do you call them? The guys that do flyers, what do you call them? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Priye. He said, thank you, Bishop. I was seriously considering leaving my job last year. And I'm sure now you appreciate your job better. Graphic designer, yeah. Go learn something. Go learn cryptography. Go learn how to code. Go learn how to code. In your spare time, the reason why you sit in front of the chart all day and then you see setups that are not setups is because you don't have any other thing you are doing. I mean, learn how to code. If you learn how to code, you'll be forced to use alert systems. You'll be forced to set a line on your chart and set an alert, and when price comes there, it alerts you. Then and only then is when you go back to your chart. Because you want to use your time for something else. Or else you always be sitting in front of your chart and you always see things that that aren't free. You'll be seeing mirage up and down. So guys, if I have the time, I know I've made this promise several times and I failed, woefully, please forgive me. I'm going to do a video around these 5 things again. I'm going to do them around these 5 things again. But please go think about them. And if you're interested in any of these ones I've mentioned, Hyperverse, IPC, or the new one I said is a crypto-related stuff, right? You could let me know. I'll stop this video right now so that I won't put personal information out there on YouTube. But for those of you watching on YouTube, there will be day 2 to day 6 based on what we have on our slide 1. So I'll stop this recording right now, and then I'll stop for 5 more minutes and call it a wrap.